Chapter 17. The Bravery of the Little Boy. Many years ago, there lived in Harlem a bright, friendly boy named Hans Brinker. His father worked at the dike. His job was to open and close the large gates at the entrances of the canals to control the flow of water. He had to close the gates carefully at night, else the water would soon overflow and flood the place. Hans' father had told him that a big part of their country lay lower than the level of the sea. For a very long time in the past, Hollanders used mounds of earth to save their land from tides. Now, they had learned to construct dikes or barriers. Hans knew that a moment's neglect of his father's duty could cause destruction and death. Hans was a caring and selfless boy and always wanted to share all he had. One bright spring day, his mother had made his favorite cake. After eating his share, he begged his mother to let him go to the other side of the dike to see a poor blind man who lived there. He wanted to give him a portion of the delicious cake. His mother was pleased that her little boy had thought of the poor old man. She at once brought a basket and filled it with cakes for him to carry to the man. Hans' father made his 8-year-old son promise not to stay out too late. Soon, the boy was on his way, thinking how happy the old man would be. This little fellow was not mistaken. The old man was delighted to have the cake. After spending an hour with him, Hans said goodbye and started for his home. His path lay beside the dike. Along its grassy banks grew beautiful wild flowers, so attractive that Hans picked a bunch of them for his mother. He walked home, humming a happy song. As he was walking along the canal, he thought of his father's brave old gates and felt glad about their strength. Hans thought, if the dikes gave way, where would father and mother be? These pretty fields would all be covered with the angry water. Father always calls them the angry water. I suppose he thinks they are mad at him for keeping them out so long. He also listened to the stealthy sound of a rabbit in the grass and smiled as he recalled the happy light he had seen on the face of his blind old friend. Suddenly, he noticed that the sun was setting and he was still away from home. It was growing dark and even the blue flowers had turned to grey. But just as he began to walk quickly, he heard the sound of trickling water. Where did it come from? He looked up and saw a small hole in the dike through which a tiny stream was flowing. Any child in Holland would be filled with fear at the thought of a leak in the dike. Hans understood the danger. That little hole would soon become a large one and result in a terrible flood. Quick as a flash, he saw his duty. Throwing away his flowers, the boy clambered up the heights until he reached the hole. He saw the leak could be stopped with one finger. So he thrust his chubby little finger in the hole. The flow stopped. Ah, he thought, Harlem shall not be drowned while I am here. The night was falling rapidly. Chilly vapors filled the air. Our little hero began to tremble with cold and fear. He shouted loudly, "Come here! Come here! Come here!" But no one came. The cold grew more severe. His tired little finger started to become numb. The ache spread to his arm, and soon his whole body was in pain. He shouted again, "Will no one come? Mother! Mother!" At home, his mother had already locked the doors and resolved to scold him when he returned for keeping out of the house for long. Hans tried to whistle, but his teeth chattered with cold, so it was impossible. Yet he was determined. He thought, I will stay here till morning. The midnight moon looked down upon that small boy sitting alone upon a stone, halfway up the dike. His head was bent, but he was not asleep. He waited for someone to come. He knew if he drew away his finger, the angry water would rush forth over the town. No, he would hold it till daylight, if he lived. At daybreak, he saw a man with a lantern in his hand. He was a laborer returning after work all night. The man thought he heard groans as he walked along the top of the dike. Bending, he saw, far down on the side, a child writhing with pain. "In the name of wonder, boy," he exclaimed, "what are you doing there?" "I am keeping the water from running out," was the simple answer of the little hero. "Tell them to come quick." It is needless to add that they did come quickly. The town of Haarlem and a great part of Holland was saved. Years passed, many things were forgotten, but the country is still grateful to the little hero who kept his finger in the dye.